All right, everyone. Steve Metrics here, along with yo boy.
DJ Triggs.
And together, we are Db8 Sports here the week after Super Bowl Sunday. A little bit later, it had a little bit delay, but boom, we're back. And boom, how about that, Triggs? Didn't think the Super Bowl was going to be so lopsided for Philly, but sure enough, they took care of business and fly Eagles fly.
Yeah, that was a little inappropriate beating there. Like it almost made it not fun, I guess.
I loved it. Man, I think I loved every single moment of that game.
Wow, that's evil. I think that might actually be evil.
That's debate. But granted, I lost my money bets, but man, having won 4 sandwiches against my friendly coworkers at work felt pretty good betting Philly, knowing that no one else had the gumption to go with the Eagles.
4 sandwiches? Ooh, what kind of sandwiches?
I think I got 2 breakfast sandwiches and 2 lunch sandwiches coming my way.
Oh, that's solid.
I got a little cross. I got some cross shift action.
Nice. Yeah, there's nothing. I had to bring up the box score because I kind of forgot how my brain was working with the Super Bowl. But you remember one thing that hit though, and after the game was over, I was like, "Ha, we did it!" Saquon Barkley, no touchdowns.
Yes,
and I don't know if you remember this one, but I said Xavier Worthy plus rushing plus receiving most yards in the game, and he exploded.
Yeah, he exploded. He stepped up. I would say his overall game has really, really grown over the course of the season. I like seeing how he's become a part of that run game, but I think all around, man, I think he's really stepping up. He's kind of reminiscent to me of what Tyreek Hill was back in the day when he was kind of starting out with Kansas City. Kind of had some of those gadget jet sweeps and then had that big play potential downfield. And Xavier Worthy's got it. I mean, he might not be the all-around guy like a Rashee Rice, but he's got that big play potential. And between him and Rice, I think they both have the ability to take the tops off of defenses moving forward. That might be the way they try to adjust moving forward is you have Rashee Rice work the middle of the field, you have Xavier Worthy, and maybe get another kind of Xavier Worthy I guess in the near future when you probably are going to be running with not as big tight end sets moving forward.
Yeah, and it's crazy because just thinking about it is wow, Rice wasn't there, and they did all of this good work throughout the season.
Yep.
Yeah, the Eagles are just going to be the next team that I'm almost guaranteeing one of these teams doesn't make it to the Super Bowl next year.
Oh, and it's Kansas City.
Oh, see, I'm actually leaning towards Philly because they have to start paying some of their guys on defense.
They do.
I know 3 of the big names they've already talked about leaving because now other teams are going to want them. But I don't know. I kind of think both teams don't make it.
Yeah. I think that's highly, highly likely. I think it's very fair to say that both teams don't make it. I mean, granted, in the NFC, I mean, I can think of 2 teams off the bat who are going to give Philly a run for the money immediately. Granted, they're going to bring in free agents. They're going to draft a little bit better. And they pretty much already got a good core foundation in place, one of which is already in that division. So if you have one team that's already kind of a problem in your division, that makes a more likelihood of returning a little less likely because, again, you're going to have to go on the road. You might have a little bit of harder path. Washington is definitely one of those teams. And then going into the West, I think with a fierce or I guess with motivation just full of vengeance, just like Philly was, I think San Francisco is going to be a top 4 team, possibly top 2 team from the NFC once we hit the playoffs next season, for sure.
All right. I mean, I'm not not completely against those. Like, I don't know. I'm just not really feeling like Philly was what, maybe a half of football from the Packers beating them. The Lions got spanked by the Commanders.
Yes.
Like you said, the 49ers weren't in it. Like
the Rams played really, really well.
The Rams came on really, really well once they got all their players back.
Yep.
But, I mean, I'm hearing some rumblings about Matthew Stafford maybe moving, Cooper Kupp maybe moving. So, like, is that the same team that comes in? Everyone's darling last year was Atlanta. What if Atlanta gets into the quarterback sweepstakes and now we got to – like, I know we were talking Super Bowl, but I know we want to talk some rumors, right?
Yeah,
so I've heard some fun rumors about Atlanta.
You think Stafford could go to Atlanta?
I got a couple ideas there. So maybe a Matthew Stafford. Okay.
Sure.
What about a Sam Darnold?
Okay.
And the big name, because think about it this way. A quarterback, an old-time quarterback, maybe handful of years ago. He's rocking out on Fox now. Went to a division that was pretty much garbage.
Right.
In the AFC South, that it's kind of easy. There's a couple pushover teams in there that you can just kind of go, yeah, we got 4 wins right here.
Yeah.
Maybe Aaron Rodgers goes to Atlanta and hooks up with a couple of young receivers and a stud running back.
Yeah, I have not heard Atlanta. I have heard him with Tennessee.
I have heard that.
I have heard that. Like it's gonna oh man, I don't know. Like I can see it happening, but I'll be honest. I mean, he definitely got better as the season went along, but still, he is 40 plus years old, and he does not look as good as what Tom Brady looked when he retired.
But
I know he's got some stats. I give him that, but too much of this is probably garbage time. I'm not on board with this. I mean, if he goes somewhere cool, great, but I don't see him having that revitalization like Brett Favre had when he went to Minnesota. That I just don't see. I know he's going to try for it, but it's either going to culminate into he actually gets a job and gets all the like guarantees of like, you're the guy, it's your show, have at it, or he's not going to get all that coddling and he's going to say, screw it, I don't need it, I'm done. It's going to be one or the other.
I'm not completely against that, but like, okay, the Jets were a dumpster fire, right?
He was a dumpster fire.
Hold on. I understand.
Not the Jets.
I get the hate. I get it. But okay, a game they lost. It was 9-10. 1-score game. They lost to Minnesota by 6. They lost to Buffalo by 3. They lost to New England by 3. They lost to Indianapolis by 1.
Mm-hmm.
Seattle by 5. Miami in overtime. Like, that's 7 1-score games.
And you know what would have gotten him across the finish line for those games? Coaching. And he ratted out his own head coach in Robert Saleh.
Whoa. Actually, like from what I've heard, now this is coming directly from players' mouths that have been interviewed in the last, especially on their way out and stuff.
Sure.
Aaron Rodgers apparently was the perfect teammate. None of his teammates have thrown him under the bus at all. And you heard him he defended Robert Saleh for multiple months, but not one player or any of the beat writers for the Jets have said a single bad thing. They all wanted him back, actually.
Interesting.
The only the main person that didn't want him back was Aaron Glenn, is from what I've heard.
Yeah,
they wanted
I
to
know
just
that.
scrub the whole, locker room and whatever. But
Yep.
Yeah, they got Garrett or they got Devontae Adams halfway through the season. Breece Hall was banged up a lot. Garrett Wilson was hit or miss here and there. 7 one-score games. Like that's even if they got half of those, you're talking about a playoff team by that point.
But who is the one who called the shots to get rid of Woody Johnson? To get rid of Robert Saleh. Was that Woody Johnson then?
Yep, that's what they've said. Because even when he came, and yeah, you gotta go through most of the BS with like a fine-tooth comb. But like Rodgers is kind of one of those people that, and this is how he's been since the Packer days with McCarthy. If something's not going to work out, Rodgers kind of tells you, like, hey, we're running a system that's X, Y, Z. Like when he and Mike McCarthy were butting heads, you knew they were butting heads. Like there was no secret. Like it kind of just said it. Like, yeah, it wasn't going to work out anymore. And him and Matt LaFleur, obviously, he went and got an MVP with. And I just think this notion that Rodgers did a bunch of stuff to destroy a bunch. Like, think about it. Just think about it in his brain, right? Aaron Rodgers is an egomaniac.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, all quarterbacks are. Tom Brady's an egomaniac.
Yes.
Peyton Manning's he came up in, Omaha every play. Like,
yes,
the greatest quarterbacks of all times have these huge egos. Well, then add on top of that, he's won 4 MVPs. Until Patrick Mahomes came, we were talking about he's the greatest thrower of the football ever. Like that's what you always.
He probably still is though.
He might.
It's like him and Dan Marino.
And Patrick Mahomes is in that category, but that might be recency bias. But
yeah, he's got a Brett Favre style of throwing. He's got an all around game, but not throwing.
Yeah. And so now like you look at things like that and you go, okay. And I know you kind of you scoffed at the idea of stats, but like if you go look at it, Aaron Rodgers was 7th in touchdowns. He was 8th in yards. Like his completion percentage. Oh man, I lost track of my eyes here. Gotta revamp my eyes. Give me 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
His completion percentage was in the mid 60s. Like he only threw 11 interceptions, which sounds like a lot in the world of Aaron Rodgers. But like when you compare that to Baker Mayfield or Jared Goff or Sam Darnold, Bo Nix, Patrick Mahomes, Jordan Love, Geno Smith, like he's literally lower than all those guys.
Yeah. If you can get a season of 30-10, that's fairly good.
That's
you can get close to that.
Agreed. And then you look at some of the nonsense that was going on. Like I said, they lost 7 one-score games. We're not talking about just like some, pushover team that everyone was just. I think it was more of the idea of them being the Jets is what got them in trouble per se. And I think someone just had to be the scapegoat about it. And it just happens to be Aaron Rodgers. So it's like, I don't know.
But they lost way too many games, man. This is a team that had no business winning just 5 games. That schedule was like really, really favorable for them.
I agree. And like I said, if you take half of those games, they're like on the cusp of playoffs. But at the beginning, was that more of Aaron Rodgers or was that the offense that was being played?
Who was their offensive coordinator? Was that Hackett?
I think it might have been Hackett. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. That might have been a part of it, to be fair. I mean, I don't know. Like, I do feel like their running back core they got is pretty solid. The receivers definitely when Devontae Adams got there, like that definitely stepped up. That defense is still pretty solid. I was pretty shocked that this team really took a step back. I thought this was a division that absolutely should have gotten both the Jets and Buffalo close to the playoffs. Maybe
Yeah.
not both, but like I couldn't believe the Jets were so far behind in being in the hunt for the playoffs. That I thought they were a much better roster than that, and I still think they are a fairly good roster.
See, and now here's where like I kind of give Rodgers a lot of like little bit of a pass. Like, so Brees Hall went from this, ridiculous running back. He was supposed to be top 5 in fantasy, and well, his first
for some
game,
people, not me, and maybe not you.
For some people, yes. But I didn't think he'd go 54 yards, 62 yards, 55 yards. The leading rusher in the next game was Braylon Allen at 34, then Brees Hall at 23. He had one game over 100. Then he had 38, 80, 74, 52. Like, that's not a starting running back in the NFL. So
No. And it's also a different style. I mean, all of his numbers last year were all CMC style, out of the backfield, dump checkdowns from Zach Wilson.
Yep.
Now he actually had to be a running back.
Like, I mean, there's no reason. And again, I just told you, Rodgers was top 10 in pretty much every category: passing, interception, yards, all that stuff, touchdowns. Brees Hall was 24th in rushing.
Yeah.
He had 5 touchdowns, which was 33rd.
Oof.
His average was 147th under qualified running backs at 4.2. Yeah. Like, right. And he was 18th in carries. So it wasn't like he wasn't getting carries. He just wasn't doing anything. So now when you have teams that aren't stacking the box anymore, and they're just playing Aaron Rodgers and a slow Allen Lazard, a banged up, oh my gosh, why am I blanking on receivers here?
You had Devontae Adams there.
And he did come in, later on.
Garrett Wilson was beat up.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Beat up Garrett Wilson. And then you had like Malik Taylor's and Tyler like, none of those guys are scaring you except Devontae and Garrett Wilson. And then the running back's not doing anything. Well, what did they expect? The Jets were going to be bad.
Yeah, you got to score points. And at some point, you got to do that. I also wonder, too, like that also plays in part to their offensive line. And I know they made their trade, but did the player that they trade from Philly, who they deemed a bust, did that may have caught up to that offensive line? Because, man, I'm telling you, I saw that guy in the playoffs for Philly, and I was totally flabbergasted of why is this guy not on the Jets?
Yeah, like, and that's the type of stuff where you just sit there and go, well, okay, was it Aaron Rodgers or was it just the whole team being terrible?
Yeah, they definitely got some team stuff. I mean, roster-wise and age-wise, I like the way that this team is kind of shaping up in kind of a younger kind of style. But, yeah, I think changes definitely have to be made. And if you're a new guy coming in like Aaron Glenn, you are not going to tolerate Aaron Rodgers one bit.
Right.
Rodgers has to go to a spot where it's someone that feels like their job is not at risk if things go south like they did with the Jets. And I think like already with seeing what things are doing in Atlanta, I definitely think Raheem Morris, and again, too, I like to give these coaches a 3-year clock. Raheem Morris already lost 1 year this past season from his clock. If Rodgers comes in and it doesn't go well, then there goes another year off the clock. And then after year 3, Raheem Morris absolutely gets fired. Yep. So I don't know if, I mean, it's a big swing for Raheem Morris. Do you want to put all your chips on that, or do you want to rely a little bit with Penix? But again, I could see an outcome where both Penix and Rodgers does work out. Yep. Cousins is definitely damaged goods. That's for sure. The other team, though, that I've heard pointed out with Rodgers that I think makes a lot of sense is the LA Rams. That's to me, I think that's a team that makes a ton of sense between Devontae and Aaron Rodgers.
I'm pointing at your Raiders. That's who I'm pointing at.
Oh,
I'm
yeah, that's possible too.
we talked about that where they could bring in a couple big names or even solid just players and have an all around team because the defense is pretty solid. Maybe add a guy here and there. But and I'm just going to throw this stat in there because this adds up to that offensive line that you were talking about.
Yep.
Aaron Rodgers was the 5th most sacked quarterback in the NFL.
So that tells you the offensive line was bad.
Yep. Because Aaron Rodgers, I mean, as a Packer fan, the guy was notoriously amazing at never getting touched. Like, it was like, oh, I didn't even know he was in the game. Like, there's no way you can sack this guy kind of thing. I'm actually looking for how many times he was sacked his last year here in Green Bay. Oh my gosh, where am I? Using some of these stats are like literally almost half. Like 20 less. And it's not going to keep any quarterback upright and ready to throw in a pocket when you're just looking to get smashed into pieces.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Like, he definitely is going to need good protection. I did think Atlanta definitely had some kind of good looking protection, but yeah, definitely my Raiders definitely had really good pass protection this season. There were games where Aiden O'Connell had like eight seconds behind the line of scrimmage for sure. Like, that's no debate.
He just couldn't pass it to anybody that was in the vicinity of a receiver. I don't know.
A little bit at times, but I think more of the guy who couldn't do it was your guy Minshew Mania. That guy definitely could not do it.
That's true. But, I mean, that's why you guys have $92 million in cap and one of the best picks in the draft. So,
totally.
There's
bodies. I think ultimately, too, this is going to come down to who Chip Kelly thinks he can work with. And it's going to have to be like a joint, legit style of, I can definitely make this work with Aaron Rodgers. Could it happen? For sure. I think based on system, though, and to me, this is kind of where I feel like these chips are falling into place. I have been hearing things that the Giants want to move back multiple times.
Yeah.
They want to bring in Bradford. I mean, they want to bring in, oh my gosh, Matthew Stafford. They want to bring in Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and move down multiple times is what I've heard. This is not a good draft for drafting quarterbacks. You basically get 2, and then the rest are projects, to be honest. Yeah. So what I think is going to happen is I think that movement happens, and I think LA would actually work out a little bit better for Rodgers and Devontae Adams. LaFleur's brother is actually on the offensive coaching staff with Sean McVay. Sean McVay doesn't have to worry about Rodgers and Devontae Adams and drama unfolding and things going south for losing his job. Like, Sean McVay is definitely pretty darn close as you can get to being a top 5 NFL head coach.
Now think about this. Like, so now if you're talking Rams, right? They have about $40 million in cap. So you're bringing in Devontae Adams, I don't know, 15, 20-ish, somewhere in there. Maybe move some money around to get Rodgers like 30.
Sure.
Now you got Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, Kyron Williams, Aaron Rodgers. What? And he doesn't have to play outside?
Totally. Yeah.
I'm just saying. Like,
which I think it does fall that he ends up either with the Rams, the Raiders, Tennessee, or like the team you pointed out that makes a lot of sense actually is Atlanta.
Now, another one that I keep hearing about, especially on the 4-letter network, is the Steelers, because they obviously don't have a quarterback. They got Russell Wilson for free. Kind of just let him do his thing, and he turned into a pumpkin.
He did.
And now their receiver is upset. And then one of their safeties said they keep that bum over there or something. I'm like you can't talk about. He is literally a first ballot Hall of Famer. Like,
oh yeah, undisputed. Like that's no debate, man.
you're just some random safety. Like, I don't even care if you're an all-pro. Like, this man's been all-pro, MVP, like, he's got so many accolades, and I know people are, well, he's only got one Super Bowl. Well, guess what? He played in the era of Tom Brady, who took all the Super Bowls. Like,
he did.
And then it went from Tom Brady to Patrick Mahomes, and he took all the Super Bowls. Like, come on. I hate that argument so much.
Rodgers has only been to one Super Bowl, though.
Yep. Anyone. Yep.
So the NFC wasn't like murderer's row. I mean, granted the AFC guys did what they did, but the NFC for Rodgers' career was not murderer's row. He just fell into some bad matchups come playoff time.
Yeah, and it wasn't weak either. I mean, they played teams like the Rams, the Vikings, and I mean
Carson Palmer's Cardinals.
Yeah, the Cardinals were pretty nice back in the day. Like, there was some, like, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't like the greatest of all greats. Like, but then again, to me, I don't feel like anyone's really completely just amazing all the time.
Right.
Like, even the AFC or NFC, or when you talk about basketball in the East and West, and like, yeah, there was times where it was stacked in certain places, but guess what? The NFC won some Super Bowls too. It wasn't like there's just some scrubs. Yeah, there wasn't just scrubs over there.
Exactly.
Because we could say the same thing about, Peyton Manning. Well, guess what? Peyton Manning ran into the Michael Jordan of the NFL.
He did.
Sorry.
There's
a lot of guys out there that don't have rings, like Phillip Rivers and, players.
And honestly, you can really put Peyton Manning in basically the same category as Aaron Rodgers, to be fair.
Yeah.
I know he's been to 3 Super Bowls, but really the one he won with the Colts was really the real legitimate one. The Broncos one that he really clocked up, that he won, well, he was carried on defense. The one he lost, they were souped up on stats. They ran into the Legion of Boom. They could not compete with Seattle that night. And I don't know. I mean, I got my theories about Peyton Manning that season, but it is what it is. So I really think Peyton Manning's only got one legit Super Bowl.
And to be honest, I mean, as a Packers fan, I don't even call that one legit. He played the Bears that had Rex Grossman.
Yes,
and
you're right.
Devin Hester. Like,
yes,
come on.
You are totally right about that.
Can't name another player on that team.
Exactly. I mean, I'd say in our lifetime, that was probably one of the worst Super Bowls of our entire lifetime. Like, it was cool seeing New Orleans win it, but the fact that was the Super Bowl at that point in time is totally legit to say that really it wasn't that great of a Super Bowl. It was cool to see that New Orleans, to see that Indianapolis really got in, had a cool team, went up against Chicago, and it was what it was. But I don't know. It really was a lackluster Super Bowl, especially with Rex Grossman and a little bit of Devin Hester. You there, Triggs? So I think we got a little bit of technical difficulty going on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you there? There you go.
I am.
I got you back.
My signal just went from like full to 1 and then back to full. I have no idea. I haven't moved, so I have no idea what's going on.
That's debate. Yeah, it's a lot of debate going on with that signal.
I'm actually changing providers in like a week, so maybe it knows.
Yes. Good deal, man. Good deal. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. But, yeah, I mean, like, you're spot on. Things rotate. Things change. It is what it is. And, I mean, I don't see as too much crazy stuff happening up top with the NFC playoffs. But, again, I do think there is going to be noise coming out of 2 other divisions. I think we got to be a little conscious of what's going on in the South. I mean, I'll keep the team that I'm really kind of thinking is going to be a fun one to play with next year. And I do definitely have my theories about what's going on with the North. And we'll wait. We'll see how these things shape up in the summer and free agency. And as we start to get into training camp and that kind of stuff, we'll play with that. So that's kind of what's going on there. But I definitely think that there's there, like, even if you are at the top, like, what's to say someone doesn't get hot like the Packers did back in the day, or the Giants did back in the day? At some
Washington.
point, some of these things click, and every now and then someone just pops out of the woodwork.
Yeah, Washington. They were literally
Exactly. They were that team.
They were a quarter away from being in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. They're definitely one of those teams. And yeah, I mean, like, the AFC is loaded. The AFC has a lot of movement going on in it. Even the AFC West is a crazy division. And I mean, honestly, like, each division basically has the best odds of getting realistically two teams into the playoffs. There are divisions that get one, there are divisions that get three into the playoffs. I'm not saying it's possible, but there's a way that the Chiefs could be at the bottom of the AFC playoffs, or possibly outside looking in, just like San Francisco was this past season. So we'll see how things change, and it could happen.
Isn't there some weird stat like that Super Bowl winners or Super Bowl losers don't make the playoffs, or something weird like that? I don't know.
There is definitely a stat out there that there's a massive drawback when a team loses the Super Bowl the following season. What that stat is exactly, I kind of forgot. But I mean, like, shoot, we're looking at the AFC West. We're seeing that Kansas City is in there, Denver's in there, the Chargers are in there, and the Raiders got a lot of money and a really revamped coaching staff, a good offensive line, and good pieces on defense. Doesn't look like there's too much you really have to throw into that to get that to work too. So the AFC West is a scary division in its own accord. You have some of that action going on in the AFC North as well. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, the AFC East, I'm not too concerned with. I think there's one, maybe two teams out of there. Same thing in the AFC South. I think you really are looking at realistically one team down there that's legit. You might get two, but really, like, your noise is going to be coming out in the AFC between the North and the West. So how that plays, but the thing is too, in those divisions, you have your division winners, and then there's almost a big kind of drop off between the next teams within those divisions. So I think that's why it's still likely that Kansas City can definitely get in and get into the playoffs, just because the fact that their coaching is so top notch. They can definitely just scheme up crazy game plans, but the question now is their personnel. So, I mean, between their edge rusher, between Travis Kelce, between other pieces on the offensive line that don't look quite right, it's going to take a little more than Rashee Rice coming back to make them back to what they were. Uh-oh. I think that was too much debate, and Triggs is in the streaming universe. Let me see what's going on there, Triggs. Oh, we lost Triggs for a bit. Oh, he's back. You there, Triggs? You there? Yeah. So I think
it happened again. It's very strange. This is why I'm getting rid of this internet. But
hey, that's a lot of debate.
Yeah, no debate at all. It is getting this week. It's gone.
It's gone. See you, man.
Yeah. Next week will be different internet.
Hey, there you go.
But at least provider. But I did check that stat about losers in Super Bowls and stuff, or in playoffs. The last three losers actually did make the playoffs.
Sure.
It was Kansas City, Cincinnati, and Philly. But 17 of the losers in the Super Bowl did not make the playoffs. So there's a good chunk.
Yeah, there's a good chunk. I just think that still, even with there being as many teams that kind of can compete in the AFC, I still think the Chiefs are going to figure it out. They are scrappy, man. They are a super, super scrappy team.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that people wanted to point out for this season, and then all of a sudden, all of that vanished, and no one wanted to call out what they were thinking going into the season because everyone thought that Minnesota had all these one-score victories 2 years ago, and that this season Minnesota was not going to be one of those competitive teams, and that they would regress to the mean and they would be one of the worst teams in the NFC North. I was with that. I believe that Minnesota could definitely take a step back. However, that was not the case. They lost 2 games. Brian Flores is fantastic, and so is Kevin O'Connell and pieces they got on that offense. So, yeah, like if you can figure out a few things and you still have your coaching in place, I still think Kansas City is still going to be a solid team.
Yeah. And I mean, it was all, I mean, I definitely have Kansas City making the playoffs. Shocker.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I do
I
too.
think the Vikings thing was more of everyone felt like the Bears were going to take this massive step forward. And instead, we were on the outside going, we don't think he's that good. Like, take Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, that's what I was so shocked about. I mean, I would have been one to definitely go with Jaden Daniels. And the thing is too, I mean, what you're seeing in the NFL with guys that really make it and with what they went through in college is you got to see a ton of reps and you got to see perseverance. I think that's what you really got to see. Out there in the Pac-10, is he really persevering through that conference? And this is pre Big Ten conference realignment. Did that really happen? Southern Cal was never really that great of a team in the time that Caleb Williams was there. But Jaden Daniels was at Arizona State, transferred to LSU, fought his way through the SEC, and then became the Heisman Award winner and just had a killer season. Same thing, too, with Bo Nix. That was a guy who had to transfer from Auburn, go to Oregon, and then ran his way through the gauntlet of the Pac-12, and then was in the college football playoff. Or actually, no, he was not in the college football playoff. He lost to Michael Penix twice. Yep. But if it weren't for that, he would have been there. So I think that's where both those quarterbacks really kind of shined and really balled out and said, you know what? I got the odds kind of stacked against me, and I'm going to go out and play better and make myself known. And I think that's why for this upcoming draft, a guy like Cam Ward is totally a baller that someone should go for. I think if you're a team that needs a quarterback, I think Cam Ward is totally the guy. But that said, all of this said, this goes along with my theory with how I thought things would develop. I know you're very anti Caleb Williams. I am for Caleb Williams. I think Caleb Williams is going to be fantastic in the coming years.
Solid.
Mm-hmm. And having that Ben Johnson as your coordinator, that's a huge step in the right direction. And now you have a guy who definitely has inside knowledge on multiple teams in your division. So, yeah.
Sorry, I had to sneeze.
Hey, I don't blame you, man. So
what about this hockey you were talking about?
Yeah, so hockey, I thought this was kind of interesting. And now we're kind of getting that time of year where there's like between various sports, there's a bunch of weird all-star games kind of all happening at once. And I thought that was kind of interesting that the NHL has taken this take on their all-star game. And I think it kind of bled off of like what we're seeing in Major League Baseball with how like they're starting to do the World Baseball Classic more frequently. And there's been talks about this in the NBA, but the NHL has decided to do away with their All-Star game altogether and basically have a 4-nation face-off of the 4 most populous nations that make up their players in the NHL. And I thought that was a pretty cool concept.
Actually, I think it is too. I know they want to talk about doing the World, but they did a draft, and I don't really know. I'm still in the process of watching the All-Star breakdown from the last 2 days.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it would be really cool in the NBA if they do a thing with actually the U.S. versus the world. Maybe at some point do it kind of like this 4-nation face-off in the NHL, But I think to have the world versus USA and make this some kind of like almost like the NBA Cup where the winning team wins $1 million or something, like make it where like legit money is on the line. I think guys would be all about that.
You mean now I know they're not going to do this, but we are big fans of the W.
Totally.
And Unrivaled. Now, I'm going to admit I haven't watched too many of the Unrivaled games just because, Super Bowls and all types of nonsense going on. But they did a one-on-one tournament, or what do the young kids say now? 1v1.
Okay.
And some of the star players got exposed. I'll just run through some of the first round matchups that kind of caught people off guard. Like,
totally.
So Shakira Austin, you might not know that name. Well, she beat Chelsea Gray 12-2.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right. Then you got teams or players like Rakia Jackson. We know she's a walking bucket. She was actually in the celebrity game. She beat Jackie Young for 11-3. Where's another upset here? Aaliyah Edwards beat Brianna Stewart 12-0.
Whoa.
Brianna Stewart was the 1 seed.
Oh my.
Yeah, like it was kind of eye-opening. Like what's another one that really caught people off? Dejanay Carrington got through. Sabali got through. Skylar Diggins Smith, who's kind of a vet now, a little older. She did her thing, and like you just had some of these where you're like, whoa, okay. But our rep, more power to us. Enrique was a number 1 seed. She made it to the Final Four. But
very nice.
Yeah, Nafisha Collier and Aaliyah Edwards made it to the finals, and Collier ended up getting it 2-1.
Totally.
But like it was kind of fun to see some of these like star players playing one-on-one with each other. Now,
smart.
Brianna Stewart, MVP, got beat 12-0. But guess what? And I can't believe I'm agreeing with talking head himself, Mr. Stephen A. Smith, right? He said something that caught my attention, and I was like, man, is that really true? Because that sucks. That's kind of making – this is why the All-Star Game's horrible. Guys and their egos that we talked about with like Aaron Rodgers, if LeBron James got beat 12-0 to I'm just going to say Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton's a well-known player, but he's not superstar. He made like an all-star game here and there.
Yeah.
But if he went and 12-zipped LeBron would probably cry about it.
Yeah.
Like if
their egos are way up there.
Yeah, and it's like, are we going to think any less of them? Well, in this day and age, people might actually think less of them.
Yes.
Do we think any less of Brianna Stewart? No. She's got a chip. She's got MVPs. She was one of the best players in college basketball history. Like,
totally.
It was cool to see these young ladies and older ladies in some regards actually go out there and compete and go hard. Yeah. And then at the end, someone won $200,000, which for a lot of them, that's a whole year of salary.
It is. Yeah. I mean, to everyday people, it's still solid money.
And I know we've talked about this before on the show, but WNBA players get paid like some regular people sometimes.
They do. How did Asia Wilson do?
I don't think she's in the league, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. But I know I don't think she was in the tournament either.
Gotcha. Okay.
But Brianna Stewart owns Unrivaled, so like,
oh, cool.
Of course, she was going to be in it.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Nice. Yeah, that's actually really, really cool. Like seeing stuff like that, you definitely know the NBA's style of their All-Star game, and you can tell, like, even the way that's formatted this year, it's very experimental. Like they are done doing East-West, one team versus another. They're done. They are trying to mix it up. Yeah.
Like it was so cool back in the day seeing like I'm just trying to randomly think like,
Vince Carter.
Allen Iverson.
Yes.
There you go. Vince Carter. Like some of these guys that you would never think would be on the same team, playing on the same team in the All-Star game. You're like, ooh, okay.
Exactly.
Is Jason Kidd going to come down and give Shaq an alley-oop and we're all going to like lose our minds? Like little stuff like that mattered. Now it's like, hey man, don't dunk on me in the All-Star game because I don't want to go viral. It'll hurt my feelings. Like,
yeah, that's pretty much what it's at.
Yeah.
That's why I think the NBA is studying hard what is going on in the NHL. The NHL is killing it. They are taking over right now. This Four Nation Face-Off, that is probably the most popular story going on in sport in all of the major sports. I think that by far is what's doing. I mean, granted, the U.S.-Canada rivalry is what's really pushing it. And you got a little bit of outside of sports. You got real life politics playing into that as well. But right now, the NHL is in this moment in time is definitely at the forefront of the major sports.
Right. And like that, I'm not gonna lie, I would watch, NBA versus the world. Like,
I'd be all in on that. I think a lot of people are.
Ooh, it'd be tough. I mean, you got Shea, Giannis, Jokic, Luka, all on the same team.
Yes.
Like now you got KD, Steph, LeBron on the other side. Like, all right, let's see what happens. I mean,
is there a way that you think like it could one day evolve into like a Four Nation kind of face-off? Where like maybe you have like US, you have so maybe
like World Cup kind of.
Yeah, kind of. But again, too, like we know some of these nations are limited. Where basically like I think you would have to have like Canada can definitely field its own team. The US can field its own team.
Yeah.
Do you then go Europe and then go like Africa, Asia, and Oceania all together?
But that's the problem, though. I'm going to be honest.
It's too weird.
Not in a mean way, but like we see the World Cup and what happens. Like a lot of those teams don't really have a chance.
Yeah,
so
they
like,
really don't.
That's why I kind of like USA versus the world. Maybe
it's got to be that way for a bit. Yep.
Because like I said, Shea is from Canada, Jokic and Luka are from Europe, and you throw like some extra like Giannis, Greece, and like you throw some bodies from here and there, and like trying to think like a Vucevic is out there.
Yeah. You got Sabonis from the Kings.
Yeah.
But Sabonis could count as an American, I believe.
I think so. Kind of like Embiid did.
Right.
Yeah. It would be a little weird, but then again, I don't know if it'll actually do anything because like they're so afraid of losing. Like, and I mean, I coach youth basketball, and like in real world, yesterday was a perfect example. So it was our first game of the playoffs. It's kind of like a seeding thing.
Sure.
And we played a team. We were up 11-0 at one point.
Okay.
Guys started missing shots because the first quarter went perfect. Guys were hitting stuff. They were getting fouls, getting their free throws. And by the second quarter, they started missing shots, and now their heads go down. And I'm still trying to motivate them and pick them apart and, bring them back up and stuff like that. At halftime, we were winning by 4. And I have some of my kids butting heads and arguing with each other. And I like the referee kind of laughed too. And I stop everybody. I go, hey, what's going on here? And I'm looking, and they're, he didn't pass it to me and this and that. And I'm like, you're winning, right? Like, you can wrap that stuff up, but there's nothing to be mad about. You're winning.
Exactly.
Well,
exactly.
Sad part about the game.
We
scored 3 in the entire second half.
Okay. That probably didn't end well.
It didn't. We ended up getting beat by like 12, I think, something like that.
Okay.
And it was just like, man, whatever got into them for one guy missing or one guy not passing, or like their egos took. And I mean, we're talking teenagers. Their egos got so like explosive that they cost themselves a game when they were.
Ugh.
I mean, so we scored 11 in the first quarter, and for the rest of the game, we scored 11. That was it.
Ugh.
And
that won't end well.
no, and it was just one of those things where you just kind of you tip your cap and you go, all right, well, cool, whatever, it happens. But it's just one of those, like, you can't even teach someone anything because this is what basketball is now. You hit a three and you throw up your hands and you do a bunch of stuff, and it's like, okay, you got 1 3, you've missed 10. Like,
Ooh.
Cool, do your thing. I guess it's cooler to look cool than to, play and not be cool. I guess.
Oh, that's definitely not our generation.
No,
it's got to be
Can't Jump is one of my favorite movies ever. And
nice.
I remember Billy and Sydney got into it, and he was like, "Oh, you would much rather look cool and lose than to win, and look like an idiot or something like that." And it's just like, yeah, that's literally the generation we're in now.
Yeah, I and definitely too the woman that's former player is now vice president of the Atlanta Dream. That was a big thing in her documentary, that she was very, very spearheaded on winning and grinding out, and that Mamba mentality like Kobe had. That's what she had, and it shocks me that other people don't. I mean, especially too, looking at the NFL, you look at a guy like Patrick Mahomes. That guy lives and breathes that Mamba mentality.
Yeah.
So I am hoping that nowadays, even though we do have social media and it is what it is, I do believe that train of thought, especially now from the Super Bowl, seeing a guy like Jalen Hurts and seeing a guy like Patrick Mahomes, I think people are going to realize that, you know what, that blue collar hard work attitude, that's what prevails. That's what comes out on top, and that's what gets you paid. Yeah. So regardless of industry you're in.
That's the crazy part about the NBA. Like, I wish they would get to that point where they would understand, like, the hard-working guys are the ones that win the championship. It's not, the guy that's already super athletic. He came through AAU and he did his thing. And most of the time, those guys are in the league for like 4 or 5 years, and then they're on the bench, and no one's ever heard of them again. Like
Johnny Davis.
Yeah. Ooh, perfect example. Did he just get traded? Where did he go? I don't know where he is now, but he just got traded from Washington. But
I know. Devontae Adams Taco Bell within his house. Yes.
That's horrible. Yes. But like, that's the mentality though, is like you want a productive, competitive all-star game. Well, what happened? These guys are, they're best friends outside the court. They're recruiting each other, but they only want the best players all on one team. And it's like, well, guess what? I may have said this before now that I'm on the soapbox, but
yes,
guess what? If all of those egos would take a pay cut, you could have the most stacked team of all time.
Huh.
Let him cook! Let him cook! I said let him cook!
That's the thing though. Think about that. You literally, if everyone took, some Tatum and Brown just got like 60, 70 million a year. Okay. Split that in half. Now you get 30, I get 30. And we bring in 2 more stars and they get 30.
Yes.
Well, now we bring in another 2 stars and they get 30. So 6 guys making 180 million. Instead, it's 2 guys making 140 million.
Right.
If you want to win a championship, isn't that what? And I give LeBron the credit of all credit, because he learned this system very well. He does that 1+1 deal and he gets a little extra money, but it's not actually extra money. It's how much the cap percentage went up. And
I think he saw it from Drew Brees, to be honest. I think he saw Drew Brees doing that in the NFL.
Yeah,
Drew Brees did that, and then like Aaron Rodgers was kind of starting to hop on that train.
Tom Brady did
kind of his latter years in Green Bay. Brady was starting to think of it a little bit, but like your point that you made, Brady was on the side of like, I got to make sure like there's this X percentage of the entire salary cap and I do not go above it.
Yep.
I think the max number with Brady was like what, 15, 17, something like that.
Something like
Still in
that.
the teens.
But Aaron Rodgers is the perfect example. Again, I know this is how we started, and it's funny because this is how we're getting close to ending here.
Exactly.
But Aaron Rodgers is a perfect example. As much as people bash that guy for his attitude, his ego, his this, that, and the other, he wasn't the highest paid quarterback in the NFL like ever until his like final season in Green Bay.
Which was a leverage play out of Green Bay.
It was literally the leverage.
Yeah, and everyone who's like deep in the weeds of understanding contracts, we knew that. You knew it. I knew it. The people we listened to who actually point this out, they were the ones who pointed out. It was clear as day that contract was not real. To be honest. And same thing too with like Davante Adams' contract with the Jets. Like Davante, once we hit next, basically a month from now, Davante Adams will get cut by the New York Jets. That's nothing against who Davante Adams is or his skill. It's just the fact that the basically the factors that are in play do not match that amount of money. Davante Adams will go to another team and more than likely be the best receiver on that team. It's just the way it plays out. And
like I give Russell Wilson the same credit. He literally got cut. He was still going to get paid. And guess what? He was like, I'll take a minimum. And the Steelers didn't do anything with it. They literally didn't do anything with it. Like the dude comes in making 30, 40 million. And he's like, yeah, I'll take minimum. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And you don't use the 30 million to go get somebody. That's why you don't win.
Yeah. Yeah. They definitely, definitely are not getting it done. I think to a point, like I think you are onto something too with Pittsburgh, because I know when that Davante Adams trade went to the Jets, I know George Pickens was gutted that he didn't get Davante Adams. If they were to bring in Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers to Pittsburgh, I think that would be very interesting, actually. Man, I do believe that Arthur Smith is a fairly good play caller. I just think there's a few more pieces they got to really figure out there. I mean, Pat Freiermuth is a solid tight end. The guy you and I love, Darnell Washington, that guy alone significantly boosts your offensive line. I mean, he's basically George Mailata 2.0.
Yeah, and like I mean, this goes all the way back to like the Jordan years. Like Jordan wasn't the highest paid player until like his final 2 seasons with Chicago. Like you understand that, yeah, you might not go and get the superstar player of, you know, whatever, like LeBron tries to do and things of that nature. But guess what? With that little pay cut, you might be able to go get a KCP who's, you know, he's getting his, you know, tax level, you know, mid-level exception, you know, but he's at least solid. You might be able to go get someone that can play a little bit. And then maybe you're like the Bucks. You win your championship and then you go, hey, you know what, Brook Lopez, thanks for taking that pay cut for us. We'll give you a little extra this time. And people are going to get mad about it, but it's like, well, you won your chip.
You did.
Let's give people money now.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's kind of how, to be honest, I mean, we're going to see Kansas City work that in this offseason. Don't be shocked to see a guy like Mahomes say, yeah, I'm totally willing to take less. And if we got to chop this up to make X, Y, and Z fit, he's going to do it, man. Like he knows that he's more than likely going into this season with some question marks on the offensive line, probably no Travis Kelce, no DeAndre Hopkins, and only X amount of time that Chris Jones has left. And boy, did he look washed against Jordan Mailata. But to be fair, so would most people. So they are definitely going to have to be in the works of bringing in some people. I brought this name up. Some people haven't like said anything about it or against it, but I really feel what's his name with the Cleveland Browns, Myles Garrett. I think he's a guy that if I were him, I would definitely make a play to go to the Kansas City Chiefs. I think Myles Garrett would be pretty amazing with the Chiefs.
Like, and this will be the last name that I throw out there. Like Kobe Bryant was a perfect example of this. He wasn't the highest paid player in the NBA until 2009 when he won his
Yeah.
fourth NBA title.
Yeah,
Fourth
he
NBA title.
he was never really getting paid much. It seemed like he was more in the works, probably behind the scenes with Nike. Maybe that was where he was getting his dollar from.
Yeah.
But really when his shoe really took off, and to be honest, stylistically, I actually do like his shoe better than Jordan's. I think it's just got that cool look. It's more, to me, it's more performance based, kind of like Sabrina Ionescu's shoe. To me, has that kind of vibe about it.
Yeah.
But I've always thought the Kobe Bryant shoes are just fantastic.
Yeah. Like, and I mean, that's the way it has to go sometimes. It's like, okay, I promise this is the last cap depth I jump in. I do. So
That's debate.
This is total.
Oh, no debate. Okay. All right, we'll see.
So you look at, all right, I'll go back to the 2012 season where all those Miami Heats and all that stuff, the Heatles were getting together. So you look at the Lakers, who had Pau Gasol and Kobe. They were making $50 million a year, right? Or they to combine 30 and 20. So then you go down to the Heatles. Bosh made 19, LeBron made 19, Wade made 18. So you had three all-stars making pretty close to what two all-stars were on one team.
Yep.
And that's how you win.
That's how you win.
That's how you win. Or at least that's how you keep your teams together. And because that, right. I mean, I made the joke about the Eagles and like, oh, some of those guys are about to take some big paydays. And I'm all for people getting paid. Don't get me wrong. But then you can't complain that you didn't win. And, when you're the highest paid player in the league and you're just sitting there going, well, they can't bring in any talent on my team. Well, guess what? You're making all the money. Give back some of that.
And the thing is, too, I mean, a lot of these guys, they live out east. They're already looking within their conference that has a very phenomenal up and rising superstar, a team that needs help on defense. These guys are going to jump ship to Washington, man. It's pretty clear as day. Washington needs guys, and they're willing to pay, and they got a lot of money to do it. They don't have to pay Jaden Daniels for like the next 4 years.
Yeah, and we learned that from Seattle, right? Russell Wilson was on that rookie deal, and they were just stacking up players, and then they won a Super Bowl.
Yeah. I think Washington is totally in the mix. I think them and Philly, I mean, they are going to be at the top of the NFC. It's going to be pretty much them until someone can figure out how to take away from that line, whether it's on defense or offense from Philly. You got to start taking pieces away and start building lines for your own team. I think Washington will do that. It's going to take time, but they're going to figure out that defense first, and then they're going to figure out that offensive line.
Yeah, makes sense.
So that's what it takes, and I think that's what we got for today. So pretty good show. Yeah, sounds good, man. But yeah, we'll be back next week. I'm Steve Metrics. That's your boy
DJ Triggs,
and that's No Debate.